Hello everyone, this is Energy Frontiers for the week. I am Justina Okechukwu and we say thank you to the African Energy Chamber for the support of the show. Let's get started with some of the biggest energy news from here in Africa and around the world. Total Energies says it has signed a partnership agreement with Sonatrach to increase oil production of the Tinfoye Tabankort fields in Algeria and develop renewable energy projects in the North African country. The French multinational also says it plans to take a final investment decision on its Mozambique Matola liquefied natural gas terminal by September 2024. Libya's National Oil Corporation has announced that its subsidiary, the Arabian Gulf Oil Company, has converted a well in the Masla oil field, which was classified as a non-producing observation well 22 years ago, into a well that produces 1,510 barrels per day using direct drilling and re-entry technology. Galp Energia, a Portuguese energy corporation, is set to drill a high-profile exploration probe in the coming weeks, targeting an enormous prospect called the Mopane Complex at the southern end of Pearl 83 in the Orange Basin, offshore Namibia. Oil prices rose on Friday, regaining ground after tumbling more than $2 a barrel in the previous session, as concerns of a wider Middle East conflict eased. While the United States, the world's biggest oil consumer, showed signs of a weakening demand. Brent crude futures climbed 0.5% to $88.38 a barrel in early trade, while the U.S. West Texas Intermediate was at $83.63 a barrel, up by 0.5%. Both contracts are on track to post their first weekly drop in 3 weeks as the geopolitical premium built on fears that the Israel-Gaza conflict could involve more countries in the Middle East and disrupt oil supply has eased. And that was a snapshot of your energy news headlines. Coming up, the International Energy Agency says countries need to have stronger clean energy policies to meet their climate targets. More on this in a moment. Welcome back. Now, the International Energy Agency says the share of fossil fuels in the global energy supply is set to decline from around 80% to 73% by 2030, with global energy-related carbon dioxide emissions peaking by year 2025. Highlighting these projections at the launch of the 2023 World Energy Outlook, the executive director of the Paris-based organization, Fatih Birol, said oil and gas consumption will increase in several developing and emerging economies, but with sharp decline in the advanced economies.
What does a peak mean? I try to explain you, and I want to say you, what doesn't it mean? So this is important to make it clear. A global peak of fossil fuels doesn't mean that all the countries of the world, their fossil fuels will peak. For example, we see that especially oil and gas consumption will increase in several developing and emerging countries, while they see a sharp decline in the advanced economies. And it also doesn't mean that we do not need any more investment in oil and gas. We will still be using oil and gas, and if we want to reach our climate targets, less and less, but still we need that oil and gas to come to markets, especially given the fact that many oil and gas fields are in decline. So we need that money definitely less than today, in order to have that oil and gas, declining amount of oil and gas come to the markets. And again, this peak dear colleagues, we see doesn't mean that we are in line with our climate targets. World Energy Outlook expects that the global emissions will peak in 2025 and then decline slightly, but we are still, with the current policies in place, in line with a temperature increase 2.4 degrees Celsius, which is much higher than the scientists tell us 1.5 is the limit. So therefore, there is a need to have a much stronger clean energy policies. We have 5 criteria. So number 1, we would like to see that the governments around the world in Dubai agree to triple the renewable capacity between now and 2030. Second, we would like the governments to agree that they double the improvement of energy efficiency globally again between now and 2030. We would like to see oil and gas companies commit themselves to climate targets by taking some measures, including a major reduction in the methane emissions, 75% by 2030. Fourth, we would like to see that the advanced economies and in the international financial institutions do come up with financial mechanisms in order to support the clean energy financing in developing countries. Fifth, and the last criteria that we would consider COP28 to be a successful one is we would like to see that the governments in Dubai take measures, agree to take measures for an orderly decline of fossil fuel use, including no new unabated coal plants to be built.
When we return, we have more of our coverage of the recently concluded African Energy Week Summit, which took place in Cape Town, South Africa. Stay with us. This is Energy Frontiers. As global energy stakeholders gathered in Cape Town, South Africa for the African Energy Week 2023, a key highlight was advocating for a balanced energy mix which encompassed investment in oil and gas exploration, renewable and innovative technologies to foster sustainable growth while mitigating environmental impact. Here is an excerpt from the opening remark by Joshua Vols, who is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Africa, Middle East, Europe and Eurasia at the U.S. Department of Energy. Take a listen.
The events of the last few years have impacted each of our nations differently, but the challenges remain the same. And it's clear that we have different approaches to navigating them, as well as different priorities, advantages, and challenges. But we also know that the climate crisis will define the next century for every country on every continent. We recognize that African countries bear little responsibility for that climate change, and yet its effects have already disproportionately hurt many on the continent. And climate change is already causing damage that will slow and even threaten to degrade the progress and the gains GEO have worked so hard to achieve. But in clean energy, we have the solutions that can curb climate change while also addressing the dilemmas that we have heard spoken about thus far. The access to energy affordability, reliability, and the security of those energy resources. Clean energy is one of the greatest economic opportunities of our time. By the end of this decade, the global market for clean energy technologies is projected to release, if not surpass, $23 trillion. It's not just an obligation, but a tremendous opportunity. This is an opportunity that we can all share and represents investment in your countries and in your communities and in your people. We believe this will create tens of thousands of jobs in the United States and millions in Africa. Africa is the future for our energy transition. Africa will play a central role in our collective energy, clean and energy future to a more secure energy future. The region has tremendous energy production potential and to some the most significant critical minerals reserves in the world. If developed in the right way and with trusted partners, Africa can lead the way by building sustainable supply chains that move beyond the extraction to higher value processing and create greater value add and greater value propositions for the people of Africa. To create higher paying manufacturing jobs that will fuel and accelerate the clean energy transition. And with the growing cohort of young entrepreneurial Africans, the African spirit can play a key role in training the clean energy workforce of the future. At the Department of Energy, we're working across the spectrum of energy projects to make clean energy technology projects more bankable. As Secretary Granholm would say, the Department of Energy is the Department of Everything and the Department of Solutions. We are keen to explore ways to partner on clean energy with carbon removal in innovative ways like using extra waste heat from geothermal generation in Kenya to cheaply remove carbon from the air. We have started programming with the Ghana Clean Energy Training Center to launch the Pan-African Nuclear Energy Training Program over the summer. Open to all at no cost to African partners to consider clean energy and nuclear solutions as a way to enable economic development, energy security, and decarbonization. Our Hydrogen Earthshot, launched by the Secretary, will catalyze the number of development opportunities in cheaper and more efficient technologies and scale that technology in markets by developing hydrogen hubs and working with others closely to deploy those partner technologies in new environments. The Department of Energy is also working in the Net Zero World Initiative. This initiative is designed to provide access to our partners throughout the world to our national laboratory system to harness that department's brain power and strategize with partner nations on developing and financing and executing tailored decarbonization plans and finance strategies to attract the public and private capital needed to make those plans a reality. Nigeria and Egypt were among our inaugural partners, and we're already doing great work with them. We continue to invest millions of dollars in Power Africa to help Africa release the energy that it has on the continent, to power Africa, and to release African power throughout the world. We believe that each of these projects has the ability to increase energy access, support economic development and diversification, and create higher wage jobs in the region. But, in fact, there's a lot more to be done. And we are here and stand ready as the United States and the Department of Energy not do for Africa, but do with Africa what Africa aspires to achieve.
In the meantime, the Deputy Minister for Energy of Ghana, Herbert Krapa, says the West African country is pursuing more structural reforms in order to meet her energy needs while striving to become a sub-regional exporting leader in the power sector.
To attract capital investments in the power sector, the government is pursuing structural reforms to unbundle the sector from its previously vertically integrated structure. Reforms open up the electricity sector for private sector investment, which in turn eliminates the regulated monopolistic structure to a more deregulated competitive structure. And we are determined to put the fundamentals in place to attract such investment. Specifically, there is the electricity market reforms to move us away from the old bilateral power market. There's also regulatory reforms for the rationalization of the end-user tariff to ensure that graduated categories which make the tariff punitive are eliminated. And then there's the legal and regulatory reforms, pursuing simplifying regulatory processes and reducing bureaucratic barriers to reduce the cost and time required to start and operate a business in Ghana. We are streamlining the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission and the Energy Commission to reduce bureaucracies and overlaps, something I am personally supervising at the instance of my minister. Investment opportunities exist in abundance in Ghana's energy sector. In power generation, new investments exist beyond 2023 through competitive bidding, collaboration and investment in the expansion or rehabilitation of existing plants such as the Volta River Authority's hydro and thermal assets. We are well placed in the sub-region to generate power for export into landlocked areas of the region, and investors can take advantage of this as Ghana moves to be a net exporter of power in the sub-region. We are also considering investments in nuclear power in the medium to long term. Power transmission, investment opportunities by Ghana Grid Company exist in the areas of construction of new 161 kV switching stations, substation upgrades, and transmission line extensions. In renewable energy, government buildings are going solar to help reduce the financial burden on utility companies, with opportunities existing in the areas of floating solar, wind farms, as well as solar parks. In the petroleum sector, Ghana has 4 sedimentary basins, the Voltaire, Central, Eastern, and Western basins, and as you may well know, all of the country's current production comes from the Western basin. This presents an opportunity for investment in the 3 other basins. The Ghana National Petroleum Corporation has conducted seismic surveys over the Voltaire Basin, and this provides potential investors with adequate data to make favorable investment decisions. There are farming opportunities and for prospective investors to operate in Ghana as well through an existing petroleum agreement without having to go through the application process. And then perhaps finally, there's the gas market, where we have invested in significant infrastructure development, including the Western Corridor Gas Infrastructure Development Project and the gas processing plant in Antwerp. And given the potential for increased associated gas production from the offshore fields, plans are underway to build a second processing plant. Opportunities exist for partnerships with Ghana National Gas Company, a respected, resilient government entity, to construct pipelines that will transport natural gas to various demand centers across the country. No other country on the continent beats Ghana to a better, more thriving democracy where the rule of law works indeed. We are politically stable, our institutions function freely, there's transparency across the board, we have a vibrant civil society, government is accountable to the people, we are open for business, optimistic about the future, and we are the place of opportunities.
And that's a wrap of the show for you this week. Thank you everyone for watching. And remember to follow the program on Frontier Africa Reports website, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us across all our social media handles as indicated on the screen. I am Justina Okechukwu. Bye-bye.